Judith Light and Estapatha Murkison are about that life. This is a fun episode. I'm going to give you my thoughts and reactions to the latest episode of Peacock's Poker Face right after the jump. Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, ring that bell below. Anytime we have something, you will be among the first to know. Fifth episode of Peacock's new series, Poker Face is dropped. It's called Time of the Monkey. Look, I'm a fan of this series. I think someone in the last video commented, and there is a bit of that. Overall, is that if you watch these in a binge format, which I think they released the first four episodes as such, and you kind of can watch them and such, it does feel like Charlie is more of the merchant of death than she is the solver of murder, because she continues to just show up in random. Because she's not a cop. Cops and detectives, it makes sense because they're going to always be around death. But it felt like she was sort of the angel of death. Anytime she showed up, people were going to die around her. And there was some to that if you watch them in that format, because the episodes are all pretty much similarly structured. So that's why I think it is a little bit better that this is sort of delivered to you in a weekly format, because it allows you to sort of get away from that form and kind of see things each separately. It's like, okay, this is a continuation as opposed to like one big story. That said, this episode does a little bit differently because a lot of the times in those first four episodes, she was around the victim more. Like, she spent more time with the victim. This time, in this episode, she spends more time with the perpetrators, and it just feels like a slightly different episode, a slightly different twist, and I kind of dug that. Judith Light and Estapatha Murkison play Irene and Joyce, two old bags, if you will, at this retirement facility that are kind of the piss starters, if you will, of this place. Like, you have Betty being the hall monitor, always trying to get activities and things together, but these two just flipping up the bird and telling everybody to go F themselves and kind of just living their own best life on their own time. They are very much each other's yin and yang, and they have an energy that feels just contagious. You kind of just want to be around them. I'm like, oh, these guys are fun. And then all of a sudden, you see a gentleman walk into the facility, and they both know him, and they look at him, and we then get a scene later, because the show does jump around a little bit, trying to kind of like hide things. We get a scene a bit later that shows Irene saying, "Well, you know what we have to do." Well, actually, says Joyce, "You know what we have to do," and Irene says, "Like, yeah, we got to kill this mom." And then we see this elaborate plan to sort of come up with the way that they have to kill him. And it's pretty elaborate. It is important to note that Irene is in a wheelchair. So they have this entire plan set up where they have to steal Fitbit monitors and kind of regulate all of those and do all that stuff. But then she has to kind of climb up a terrace with just her arm strength, which, yes, we know that people, as they lose some one part, especially if they get lost them young enough, are able to do other things. But it's pretty fantastic for her to kind of climb up there and then take out this gentleman with a syringe, and then have this whole plan to cover up the timeline so that it seems like they were at this trip, watching the zoo and seeing the monkeys and doing all kinds of random stuff. So it is fascinating to sort of see these two old ladies were perfectly fine living their prolific, just having fun, taking the piss out of everybody's lives, to becoming cold-blooded killers like that. And then we learn a lot more about them. We then introduce Charlie into the fold. So, after the first 20 minutes of all that setup, Charlie finally is there. And Charlie's been there, as always. She's been taking an odd job as she continues on the run. She's at a job with the senior facility, and she sort of starts taking a liking to Joyce and Irene. Much to Betty's warning. Betty's like, "Hey, them two is crazy. They're demons." She's saying everything you can possibly can. She's like, "Nope, you don't want to be around them. Don't be around them." But Charlie sort of fits with them. Like, they're this super laid back, cool, these 70s hippie girls. They smoking weed and having a good time together. And they start talking about their their lives and their exploits and what they lived and how long they've been around each other. And in that, they found that they were hippie folks that they met. Irene was the quiet one, and they met when Joyce was catcalling dudes and having their way with them, and they just became each other's right hand. And they were activists and trying to kind of stop the man and go against whatever fascists they thought were fascists at the time. And in that, there's a moment when the two of them are raided, um, and they were madly in love with the I guess the lead, calls him like the David Koresh, if you want, of it, the leader of this sort of group, Gabriel, and they were both madly in love with him. They had a threesome together with him, like they were a big fan of him. So then there's the show sequence where when they were younger, they're getting ready to perform their next big thing, their big protest. And Gabriel kisses them both, and he goes out, and then the police raid, and the police raid come in, and they're coming in not to arrest, they're coming in to shoot, and they're firing, and Irene gets shot in the back, paralyzed, she can't feel her legs, and Joyce is there to kind of be there with her, says we'll get through this, and then uh, for them, they believe Gabriel was also shot and killed out there. So that was the last that they sort of saw of Gabriel. And that kind of was the love of their life gone. Charlie's like, oh, that's sad. It's like, it's super sad because my man was hung like a freaking fire hydrant. Like he had a big old member there. And it's a fun piece. And that piece, I'm only bringing that up because that's sort of a clue that Charlie gets along as it comes to help her figure out what the hell actually happened. And in that, you get a bit of a hint of who Joyce and Irene really are. Because he's like, oh, well, you forgive the pleas, like you forgive him. He's like, oh, no, we don't forgive. So you can kind of see the seeds of their malice underneath, but you don't really know. We as an audience know that yes, they would kill Ben. We don't know why, but we don't know how far that malice goes. Like I'm thinking in my head, like, oh, he may have been like a domestic abuser or one of them. Like who knows? That's where my head went. And then we spend a little time with Charlie, spending with Ben. Very short window of time. Ben is the gentleman that they saw. It's like, oh, we got to kill him, and who's the person who's killed. Ben is taken to his room, and Charlie is sort of there to like greet him. And she asked him like, hey, would you like me to close the windows? Like, nope, prefer it to be open. Which, retrospect, should have closed that window. But Charlie sort of takes a liking to him because he sees that the guy that claimed to be the uncle, I mean the nephew, didn't really feel right. It's like this feels doesn't feel like, yeah, you're the uncle, sure, I'll believe that. And so she could sort of see that he felt alone. And in that she was like, do you need anything? She's trying to be there for him, and he's being very dismissive. Like, nope. And then she closes the door, and it's kind of the end of their bond or their relationship. We then see, because Ben did notice Joyce and Irene. He saw them as well. And then he goes to their room at night, knocks on the door, and they have a conversation. And what we are then led to know is that when they saw him and he saw them, it was the connection of Gabriel and Joyce and Irene. So the man that was killed, or they thought to be killed in the raid, they saw was still alive, and that kind of brought up all the emotions and heartfelt they loved and wanted to be a part of with him. And they really, you could see the genuine happiness to have him back in their life. They were very excited to have him back. But then Gabriel goes on to tell them, like, yeah, I wasn't on the run and anything. I need to let you guys know that I am the one who dropped the dime on you guys. I was put into witness protection, and the raid occurred, and it's been eating at me. It's been killing me all this time. They're like, oh, it's been killing you? Hold on, bro. She can't walk. She don't even have legs. And he's sort of come to this moment to look for forgiveness. He's like, I just wanted to say that I'm sorry. Can you guys ever forgive me? And Joyce is kind of, both of them with tears coming down their eyes, like, yeah, we can forgive you. And then he leaves out, and then we see that's when the scene happens where Irene is in the chair, and Joyce is above. And it's like, well, you know what we got to do now? Yeah, we got to kill that mother. That's where that comes from. And then we're off to the races. Where things start falling apart from them is then the story that the ladies tell Charlie. They mention album cover that they were on the cover of with Gabriel. Um, Crappy thing, I think dopey something. I forgot what it was, but she found a shirt on Etsy with it and got it and is wearing it. It's like, look what I got. I'm super proud to show it off. But they go to the zoo. They do the whole timeline thing. There's an elaborate bathroom sort of hold that Joyce and Irene pull off. While at the zoo, Charlie runs into the two of them. It's kind of like, hey, what's going on? You guys want to see the monkey? And they're like, no, we're going to go do something else. She believes they're going to go get high. It's their moment to go get high. But Charlie is like going to go see the monkey, and they're going to go basically do. They've already killed Ben at this point. They're going to go do a taser shock to their system so that they can kind of jolt their Fitbit, so that the medical staff can go to his room and see that he's pronounced dead while they are not there. So to kind of give them an alibi. It's important to know that at this point in time, the monkey Melody is doing a time thing, telling time by beating on this drum. Charlie's super amazed by it. They make it back to the facility, and Charlie sees a body being pulled out. She's like, "Well, I was just gone for a second. Who's that?" And they're like, "It's Ben." Man, he just got here. At this point, she still has no idea. She's not putting anything together because she does not know that Ben is Gabriel. So then she goes to the funeral for Ben. There's a mock-up photo. There's a photo of Ben as Gabriel, older. Younger, from the past, similar to the way that she's still wearing the shirt of the album cover. She goes. There's nobody at the funeral but his nephew. She goes and sits next to him, and she's like, "I know you're not the nephew. I can see the way that you're talking." And at that point, he kind of lets on like, "Look, ain't nothing he can do now. He's gone, but he was in witness protection." He doesn't say who it is, but like, "Oh yeah, he's in witness protection." And then she goes up to casket and sees the photo and looks at him like, he looks real familiar. And then she looks at the imprint in his pants and sees that, oh, that dude's member is massive. She pulls down her jacket that was covering her shirt and was like, hey, that's him there, right? It's like, yeah. And then mentions that Joyce and Irene are also here. She wasn't really trying to drop a dime on them because she didn't know that it was all connected or why he was in witness protection, but she's like, oh yeah, they were here. And that's when he was like, wait, what? They're here? And for him, he's all of a sudden like, oh, I effed up because Ben wanted to come here. He didn't do any type of due diligence. He didn't check in to see where Joyce and I were. He didn't do any of that. But now that he knows that he wanted to come here, he's like, oh, that crap. That's bad. But in that, he also tells him like, oh, it's like they're cool kids. They're not the ones responsible for this. They're two cool people. And then that's when he lets Charlie know that no, those people are nuts. They tried to blow up a UN meeting, and not just a regular UN meeting, a mock UN meeting. She's like, wait, you mean like a UN? It's still a UN meeting. Like she's like, no, a mock one with kids. I don't know what's worse, a real UN blow up or a kids one. She's like, no, the kids ones is far worse. And they do this all with pressure cookers, right? So then Charlie kind of just wants to go have a conversation with the ladies. And she goes and talks to them and says, like, hey, real quick, you guys weren't planning to blow up a high school with you. He's like, oh, no, we were. We were trying to stop the fascists before they became full-on fascists. Stop them young. We don't have to worry about that. And they just start sounding bonkers. And Charlie's eyes start to open up that they're more like Manson than they are like pacifists or like hippie political folks. These guys they're straight up murderers. And then we get another line read of like, you're thinking what I'm thinking once Charlie leaves. And for me, that means that like, oh, they're going to try to kill Charlie, which later we find out they were, just was a bit of a delayed spot. I think this was funny. It's a funny bit. Charlie goes out to, there's three women who've always been watching the TV at this retirement facility. She goes to talk to them, and they are watching. They love the murder shows. They got notepads. They're watching murder. And she's like, "Hey, real quick, can you guys tell me what would be the best way to kill someone without like much knowledge or like much fanfare, like to do it with poison?" And they go down like the gamut of poison. And then they come to the sodium dioxide or sodium oxide and kind of see like, oh, that might be the way. Charlie's kind of got her hint in, but that's just a cool scene because they just start riffing off like, yeah, this, and this. You can tell how much people when they age and they're in their retirement homes, or people find that things like this, either the soaps or like wrestling or like whatever, they have something that they're just so in love with, they're fixated on, they can tell you a litany of it. That was cute. But at that point, Charlie calls Pete, who was the witness protection person, to give him sort of the heads up of kind of what was going on, because she finds a clue about like the Fitbit not being the heartbeat not being 100% the entire time. That there seemed like a moment where the Fitbit was off, or something didn't occur. And so she learns of like, hey, Betty informed me that there was a moment where she saw Joyce and Irene doing bad things, dildoing each other in sort of the cage spot. She saw him sort of in the background, and it kind of gave the timestamp of when Charlie was with the monkeys. We then see Charlie a little bit on the phone with Betty, and she's like, "Hey, something's weird with my pressure cooker." And then pressure cooker blows up, and the duo have killed another one. These bad boys, unlike all the other people, they've killed multiple people. These guys they just don't give a damn. So this is why this episode has been a little bit more fun, because they're taking out people left and right. It feels different than they did any ones previously. So then Charlie, this is a weird way for her to do this, but she clearly had an end game to it. But Charlie, it meets the ladies in their room, pulls up a cig, and kind of just starts talking to them like, "Hey, look, I know what you did. We know that you're responsible for the death of Betty and for Ben. And we'll let you know how we know. When Ben was killed, the watch would have just flatlined. And then anytime that they went in to resuscitate him with the shockers, the thing was still on. We would have seen a shock. So if he was still wearing the Fitbit that he was supposed to, and you guys weren't wearing it, then it would have registered differently. And that's when the ladies set up and just knock down drag out with Charlie. Like it's 2-on-1, but one of them paralyzed. They giving Charlie the business. Like she is having a hard time. They slicing her back of her leg. Like she can't run. It is a rough go for Charlie. Like if anything, if she's gonna keep putting herself in these situations where she's kind of like baiting people, she might want to take some fighting lessons, because she was getting her ass whipped by these two old women. But then what occurs is that Charlie takes a taser and just shocks herself. And they're like, "Wait, did we break her? Like, what the hell is she doing?" And it's at that point she reaches up and shows that her Fitbit is now gone offline. She was wearing a Fitbit. And thus the medical staff shows up. And the FBI, oddly. Like, I know she was on the phone with Pete, but that just seems a little bit convenient. But whatever. They show up as well. And they come in and they arrest both Joyce and Irene. And then Charlie kind of goes out to start her vehicle. And it takes a couple of times, and it's like, wait a minute, and she gets out, and then it blows up. And so they were trying to kill her as well. She was the "I know what I'm thinking" line. And Joyce and Irene looking out the back of the cop car, kind of like, we tried to get you, and they flip her off as they pull off. This was a fun episode. I can't lie. I do think it works better as like I said, as a single, like watch one, forget about it a bit, come back and watch one. I think it allows your brain to do a lot less. Hey, why is she always around crime or murder? And it kind of just lets you go in with the flow. And I think this one does enough things slightly different, where we spend more time with the villains of this than we do the heroes. And her connection is more with them, whereas all the previous one, her connection was with the person who was murdered, and she's then trying to solve first the villains. And I think Judith Light and S. Zapata are doing fantastic. They feel fun together. Judith Light is, you can clearly say she's having a ball. Like this is one of those ones where um, you get the script, especially as a person in their 70s, where you get a script and you're like, oh, this is fun. I'm gonna have a ball with that. She said she did her own stunts, and you can tell that everything she was doing, she was having fun. And I appreciate, and that came across in the screen. These are just fun, tight scripts. They're well shot. They don't reinvent the wheel, but they're just so entertaining when you watch them. So that is the 5th episode of Peacock's Poker Face. What did you guys think about this episode? Leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDid@gmail.com. We also have a podcast with the same name. That's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, any other place podcasts. We're there. And like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.